This one's all about what's going on in the industry, the new generation playing way too many notes. Let's get to it. And you know who I am. You know that that phrase is kind of ironic coming from me because I love to play a lot of notes. Love it. Take solos, drums. It's very easy to fill it up with drums. And I posted, I forget what the title was. It was about the solo, the evolution of the drum solo. And I explain why playing drums lends itself to a lot of notes. The nature of the instrument, the duration of the note, the resonance of the instrument, the rudiments, all lend themselves to filling up space and time. It's always been like that with drummers. But what I gather is happening, and this post is a reaction of what I saw yesterday. Two older guys, a little older than me, I'm 45, and they were saying, one was saying, y'all are playing way too many notes. Y'all are playing way too many notes. He was obviously, apparently, getting frustrated with seeing the new generation and how they're interacting with music. And probably that, he didn't mention it, but through his frustration, you could see the second part of that would have been possibly talking about how the internet is fueling spectacular kind of playing. And so he was getting frustrated with this, and he was saying, just play me, make me feel a note, man, you know. And then there was another guy that was obviously separating himself from the amateur crowd, and there's some justification in that, saying that professionals don't get into the debate of a lot of the issues that are going on in YouTube. That drummers, and he was specifically talking about drummers, creating debates, posing questions that professionals don't even give a crap about. And to a large extent, I completely agree. And that's why the stuff that I'm talking about tends to be kind of a delicate nature. I'm not going to go into the... that's another subject, but there's a ton of subjects out there that I will never do. Moving on. So he was obviously frustrated and trying to shed some light on not only the people posting those subjects, but also distancing himself from that group. And this, obviously, if you're like me and you're in the music community, you've been there for a long time, and you've seen how it's evolving, how it's growing, and then with the arrival of internet and what that's doing, it's a twofold. At one end, you have the algorithms of YouTube and internet, social media applications, promoting, quote unquote, the spectacular kind of playing. It's actually not promoting it. The people are promoting it, and the algorithm is picking up on that. The algorithm is not discriminatory, as a lot of people might think. The people are. And that's one subject where people go to social media sites, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, to be shocked. Let's just be real about this, people. They go there to be shocked. In some form or another, whether it's a beautiful phrase, whether it's a beautiful body, whether it's a how-to that they never understood to do, whether it's a wonderful moment in a performance that just catapults not only the performer, but is suggesting that you go there with them in opera or in drumming or in sports, everything, race cars, everything is, what do I want to say? It's, you go there for kind of the shock value. We go in hopes of being woken up somehow, it's a very peculiar, fascinating period of our lives, of the world, where, when I was growing up, to get that kind of shock to help me grow that profoundness, I played music, which is what I still do. I read books, and I looked for material, art as well, material that would, that somehow evoked something new in me. And that's the extent of it. And then I would go to movies like a lot of people. Let's go get a movie at Blockbuster. Let's go get a new album at Tower Records. And we would go in hopes of finding something that would jolt us and help us grow and mark us somehow with some kind of revelatory thing. And this helps you grow. It's in those periods of stagnation where you feel stagnation. You feel like you're just on a boat in the middle of the lake and there's not a ripple or a person or a bird or anything going by. So today we have internet serving that purpose a lot. You can find anything. And imagine internet being a street you walk down where it's just store after store after store proposing different subjects to, shock you, help you learn, wake up, for revelations, for work, for whatever. So the nature of this environment lends itself to, in music, very spectacular performances. Whether it's drums, piano, and it also is elusive because it gives the impression that that's what's going on all the time in a musician's life. I post up a lot of solo drumming, and because I believe that within solo drumming, go back to my other post about solo drums, that it's very important for the musical community, for those that can hear. So I feel there's a responsibility. I'm not just keeping it for myself. And at the same time, I notice a difference between content in solos. So it's just not flash for flash. In my opinion, there's a lot of freshness and there's a lot of things to discover in the solos that I'm posting. But that doesn't mean that that's what I do all the time. And the internet and the way people are, the psychology interacting with this format lends itself to those kinds of posts. And for people who don't understand, you might think, man, well, these people just shut up, thinking they do this all the time. I just did a gig this past weekend. It was great. I never took one solo. Not one. A few fills here and there, but it was a pocket gig. I played pocket for 3 hours. It's awesome. I love it. I'm completely content doing that. And that brings me to another idea where you see some people, some musicians in school, because they appear to be about maybe in their late teens, early 20s, saying, you see this, but actually what's behind the scenes is this. Boom, chop, right? Or just chop, And that's actually the case. I thought about doing one of those too, but it would just be kind of like a gimmicky, gadgety post, and that's not really what I'm about. But I do recognize I have a funny side to myself, and I do recognize that is the case. I remember at school taking lessons with George Garzone, an amazing tenor saxophonist, amazing. Coltrane multi-triadic system, that whole deal, amazing. And he said, I remember, saxophonists, these kids should just be going boo, boo, just getting, excuse me, my battery, just getting sounding good. And not going, not doing that stuff. There's a time and a place for everything under the sun. That's a great phrase to remember for all of you. There's a time and a place for everything under the sun. And seeing that, online, whether it be drums, piano, saxophone, guitar, whatever, it's a part of the medium. Now, that doesn't mean that playing simplistically won't work. It does work. And that's what I think this gentleman was, if he does understand the media format and what it lends itself to, he also knows that it does have merit and it is attractive to play a groove or play simplistically and get the audience to feel those notes, and that is also hard and worthy of your attention. But what's happening, I think, he is touching on the subject of younger kids, the newer generation, might not. It's kind of becoming a victim to the way it's being presented on YouTube or Facebook or whatever, thinking that this is all that we do. And maybe this gentleman was afraid that that's the way these younger kids are going to go. Yes and no, because regardless of what you do on YouTube, if I were to go and do my gig this past weekend and just fill it up all over the place, people would walk out the door. So, yes and no. That the real truth is when there's somebody in front of you listening to you, what they do. And there's a natural tendency, fortunately, to put that kind of spectacular behavior in third, fourth, fifth place, and first and second place is time, musicality, musicianship, respect, sound. Now, the other gentleman was talking about how he was distancing himself from the amateur community, saying how professionals don't get into these debates, that all of this younger generation, but he didn't say younger generation, I don't believe, but a lot of the musicians are debating about, that they just don't do it. Professionals, I could name names right now. I'm not going to, but think of a professional drummer from the 80s, a session drummer. You never see them say, I don't know, is John Bonham better than Buddy Rich? You'll never see those session drummers from the 80s say that stuff, post stuff up like that. I mean, yeah, it's fun. Now, having said that, you might see a few, but it's not likely. That kind of material is of the newer generations, and it's also of older generations using newer generations' technology, YouTube. But for the most part, the drummers, the session drummers, the professional drummers that lived through the 80s are not engaged in that debate. They don't care. Most of them just want people to leave them alone. And so this person was talking about that situation going on and how it's potentially, he didn't say, but potentially ruining things. Yes and no, I feel. Yes and no, but because kids are kids, and that's how you learn. So you fill it up, go ahead, fill it up. You'll learn. You'll learn that people don't like it in a ballad. Go ahead, make that mistake. Have a debate about who's better, who's the best drummer in the world. Fine, go ahead, do that. And then you'll learn that regardless, it's subjective. So, fine, go do that. Make that what you want to say. Kids are kids. Learning process lends itself to mistakes. You have to, as a teacher, you have to be patient. with that. Teaching, which is what I do for my career, and I've been doing it for more than 30 years, teaching, there's a big, big, nasty word in there that a lot of musicians and artists and people do not have in their vocabulary. Patience. Patience for mistakes, for errors. Patience. So, yes, when I see one of my students filling it up in a ballad, my eyes might roll, or I might internally say, man, that's, you know. But we're in drum class. You know, it's not like the guy's walking on a tightrope or on the edge of a cliff. Nothing's going to happen. We're in drum class, and discoveries are made naturally through patience. If it gets too much, then you say something. But so with the debates, people are learning what's really worth the discussion table, you know? What's really worth it? But the way that the way that these social media sites are working, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, lends itself to the idea that that's all that's happening. And these two gentlemen are probably getting frustrated, as am I, of not seeing the core values. And let's be honest here, most people, incidentally not on my channel, but most people that watch YouTube and that use Instagram and TikTok are in their 20s. Most of the people that are doing that. So, if you're a grown man and you go to a park with a slide and a swing set, you're going to see the difference of your maturity and what's going on in the park. And you're going to clearly see, you know, this, I'm not about this, because you're an old man now, or you've matured past the enjoyment of a swing set. Well, that's kind of like what these social media sites are. The material that's being posted on them is posted up a lot by young people. It's fascinating them. And so, and it's also consumed by young people. So as an older person like me, and older, going to sites like YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, you kind of feel like you're like in a kid's park sometimes, you know? And you just have to filter through stuff to find that great Bill Evans solo. Filter through stuff to find a wonderful discussion on metaphysics, you know? And so if you don't make that effort, then yes, you will get stuck, you know, on the swing set. And, you know, it does get overwhelming. In one case, it pushes you back to the fundamentals, reading books, digesting music in real media formats like a cassette, a record player, a CD, which are why those things are coming back, in my opinion, because the older class is getting sick of the social media thing, you know, lacking a maturity in a very large way. The comedy is there, but in a very large way, there's not the maturity that you can get listening to a Charlie Parker album on a record. reading a Hemingway book. You might get a quote, but that's out of context. And you're not living with the book in your bag to work, in the rain, at lunchtime, something you can touch and feel and smell, the paper, etc. So all of these other things are coming back, I think, because a lot of people are noticing that the maturity online is just not there. And as you get older, you want more and more of that. But at the same time, I think that it will eventually find its equilibrium. Let's hope so. Because there are wonderful places to go where you can get a lot of wisdom, maturity on your couch, where you can listen to Shostakovich, Puccini, Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Count Basie on your couch. Things to think about. Pause. Second subject. I saw a post of a woman saying this has got to stop. And she was talking about how she was in a restaurant and the music that she was hearing was produced by AI. And it wasn't new music. This is the kicker. It was reproduction of a famous song, but using AI to do it. And I gather she tried to Shazam it, and it said artist unknown or something like this. This is a real problem. This is a real problem. And it really goes to the heart of why artists and musicians have always been cautious of the businessman, whether they be musicians or not. Because why is that happening? And apparently I was going through the comments, and apparently it's happening kind of all through the world now. A lot in Europe, I saw, but maybe that's also the case in America, I don't know. It's obvious why it's happening when you're in the music community. It's happening for money, for royalties. When AI makes a reproduction of a song, the royalties are different. And the distribution of money earned from that song is different. You don't have a band to pay. It's cheaper, way cheaper. You can just pay one guy, two guys. You didn't even have to deal with bringing in musicians that have worked all their lives to do the music that you want them to do, which already costs a fortune individually. You didn't have to rent out the studio space, rent out the gear, rent the instruments, find an engineer, repair the microphones, call up the guy that slept late. You didn't have to do any of that stuff using AI to reproduce that song. And so the cost on your end is beneficial. And because you're more of a businessman and businesswoman, this is not just a masculine thing. These people they don't care about all of that stuff I just said. They care about earning money, and they look at it as a business strategy. Hey, I can use AI to make music and sell this at a cheaper price to the restaurant and make all of the money in return. Yes, I might have to pay some royalties because if it's an AI song covering another song, there are some royalties, I imagine, there. If there aren't, that's yet another gigantic problem, because why would AI not have to pay royalties, or the man or woman who are creating those songs, when artists do? If I cover a song and put it out there, I got to pay royalties on that song immediately. Immediately. And then every single time it's played, I also pay royalties. So if that's not happening, that's also another big problem. But here is the next step, which is going to happen until we, as musicians and artists, get this under control. Until a business man or woman stands up and says, no, it's not going to do this. We're not going to do this to our culture. And that is taking those songs made by AI and putting them on the radio. Don't underestimate the radio. Putting those songs on the radio next to the greats, the classics. That's yet another avenue where the radio won't have these gigantic royalty fees to pay for playing I Will Always Love You. Right? The reason why we're not hearing that song a gazillion times anymore is because it costs money to play that song for the radio. And they only have so much money per period to use to pay for royalties and airtime. So if you use AI music, there's no royalties there. If you use an AI that's covering music, there are royalties, but it's a different kind of royalty. And the money on the other end goes to just two people as a business strategy, that are using that method to make money. They're not caring about the destruction of the culture with their business strategy, which isn't that the case today with everything? Business people aren't caring about the destruction of our beautiful society. They're caring about impressing the woman or the man they're with all of the money that's in their pocket. Why don't you try and impress them with the beauty of the society instead? But hey, that's what makes all of us who we are. That is a really big deal. That's a really big deal. That's going to change the face of music if people don't get a hold of that problem. Now, is it going to affect me? Well, I'm a teacher. It might, to some degree, it might annoy me a little bit more than usual, but I'll still be able to teach. Is it going to change the way I play? No. Is it going to prevent me from turning this camera off and playing right now? No. But it will indirectly affect my environment. by desensitizing my environment's perception of art and music. And that is a very hefty conversation. The role of art and music in society, in a culture. When you start destroying those things, chaos occurs. In so many words, you start taking away those aesthetics and the teaching of those aesthetics. People don't learn how to value aesthetics, and slowly degrade their sensibilities and become just junk food consumers. And junk food consumers, create junk food companies. So, what's that word? What's that phrase? Demand. I forget that phrase in the business phrase. The demand for something and the product of something, they go hand in hand. So, if the world turns into an AI generated environment of art, we got a big problem. Not because there won't be people like me performing art. That will always be. It's almost like a necessity of our beings to express, to create. It goes hand in hand with who we are and what we are. So that won't stop. You will still find some guy, girl playing harmonic on the street, or hitting a drum, or blowing through a flute. You'll still, or painting a picture, or writing a book. That stuff will still happen. But on the other end, because the business strategy is now about profiting as much as possible using AI and flooding all of those industries with AI instead of life-driven content, then there's going to be a major desensitization of people's aesthetics. And like I said, when that happens, that's a big problem. That's a major problem. We see it already in cultures where that's happened with food, and the result is those companies profiting, taking advantage of it, creating content that keeps you addicted and feeds the whole circus of medicine. It's a vicious circle, and it creates obesity and other problems. So now do that in the art world, there will be obesity in the art world in so many terms. So that is a big problem, and I'm actually quite shocked that the world is letting it happen. And it just goes to show who these people really are. It really, if you're mean, if you don't give a crap about our world, our beautiful place here, we'll see it. Eventually, you will be seen for who you are. And we are seeing it. These people can't even resist it. They are proposing to create AI songs and use them in restaurants. And the restaurants are choosing to pay for those AI songs instead of real musicians. So it's not just the business, it's actually the restaurant too is guilty. Or they've been so desensitized by it, they don't even know the difference. That this is not the real Guns N' Roses song, you know? It's shocking, but it's also very, very revealing what these people actually have in mind. And they're at the top. Now, I don't think that they are all like that at Universal, at Sony. I think there are a few people that are somehow figuring out how to negotiate these deals, and maybe, the CEO is not aware of it. And that is not uncommon. I'll leave with this. It's not uncommon for the head honcho to not know what's going on below them in a company. So who's to know if they are really a part of the problem or not? Here's an example. I have a notation system called the Universal Meter. It's a revolutionary way of writing music. And I've been doing it and promoting it and giving master classes on it for a long time. Wrote many books about it, etc. In the beginnings of its life, I was shopping it around, trying to find people that would be interested in talking about it and partly financing some further production of it in different ways. And I went to a school here in Paris. I'm not going to mention the school, but I went to a school here in Paris. And I was like, this is going to be perfect, because this school is really about research and development on the cutting edge of music in Paris. Went to them. I was super excited to go and talk to the man. It was the CEO, the head honcho. And I was dumbfounded. And this is in my 20s. I learned that way back then, the head honcho doesn't know. That's not their job, their role. And I was sitting there, reduced down to teaching this person what the normal system was. I couldn't even get to mine because they had no clue what the normal system of music notation was all about. That could be the case with these gigantic companies, that the head honcho doesn't know what's going on in the ranch. But they should. So, wow, this was a very dense post again. I don't know what I'm going to call this one. I had an idea, and anyway, more news soon. Thanks for following, subscribing if you're so inclined. I do a lot more drum solos than I talk, and it will always be that way. But when things come up like this, I think it's important to give our 2 cents on these subjects. Anyway, that's it. More to soon. Ciao.